sucker.
Before we get there, there was some wrestling breaking news that I think we should react to because it was something that we discussed on this show a few weeks ago. It was announced by the WWE that we're right around the corner for the Hall of Fame. Big Van Vader
Yeah,
officially going in the Hall of Fame.
big
I
time.
wish he was here in person on this earth to witness it and give that speech. Like I think that he would have given a one of a kind induction speech. But still, so deserving. Big Van Vader in the Hall.
Yeah, man. I was doing some interviews today, talking about the big showdown in D Town coming up here at the end of the month, and they was asking me a question about Vader, and they said, "What do you remember most about Vader?" And I say, "What I remember most about Vader is seeing those guys in the locker room at center stage, lined up like sheep, and Vader come in and say, 'I'll take him.'" That line right there, I was so glad I never had to participate in that right there. But Vader would take those guys out there, and he had those forearms, man, boom, 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 and he'd be racking those guys. I know they had, eardrum problems, after working with Vader, but he definitely was one of those guys that made an impact on me. Because it was before I ever got into wrestling, but I was watching NWA back in the day, and then I got a chance to see Vader come out. When he came from Japan, he had the big masks done, helmet, and the smoke would come out. And it was definitely revolutionizing the business back then. So Vader was always high on the list as far as guys. One of the first big guys that would go out there and pull the moonsault off. You know what I mean? So Vader was definitely Hall of Fame material.
You know, it's funny that you say you knew of Vader before you got into wrestling yourself. And what's funny is I knew about Vader before I was ever a wrestling fan. And I don't know if you'll remember this show, Booker, but there was a show that used to come on TV called Boy Meets World. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah, remember
Yeah.
that.
It was big in the 90s. And Vader was on Boy Meets World all the time as an actor, but playing himself. He was like the father of one of the main characters on the show. So every
Oh, really?
now and then, yeah, every now and then Vader would be on the show. He was always wearing the mask. He was always Vader time on the show.
Wow.
And that's how I first saw him.
I
And
never
then
knew
when I
that.
got into wrestling, I started watching it. He had come into WWF back in I think it was like 98 maybe. And he was working a program with Kane, I remember. And I was like, oh my God, this is a real guy? This is the guy from Boy Meets World, And
Yeah.
then I go on to realize how much of an impactful career Vader had years before. Like you said, with the Mastodon helmet, what he did in Japan, what he did in WCW. I think that as far as big men go, I know there's a lot of talk about the greatest big men of all time, and to me, Vader's top three. Vader's top three big men, maybe top two, because when you talk about, there are a lot of people are talking about Keith Lee over these last couple of weeks, how agile he was or he is for a big guy. Don't sleep on guys like Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow, right? These were guys who could
Yeah,
move
yeah, yeah,
quickly,
yeah.
do a lot of stuff that they shouldn't even be able to do. And Vader was before his time. And Vader would have been a Hall of Famer in any generation. If he was wrestling now, he would have been a Hall of Famer.
Definitely, high praise to Vader. Like you say, one of the best big men that to ever do it. I got to throw the big boss man in there too, though.
Big Boss Man.
Big
No,
boss man can move, man. He can, as well as Mr. Hughes. Mr. Hughes can move. Yeah,
what was
I'm
crazy
just,
about Boss Man is, if I can say, when he was in his first run in WWF before he went to WCW, when he was Big Boss Man there, he was big. Like he was north of 300 big,
yeah, yeah,
right? And he was faster when he was bigger. Because when
yeah,
he came back to WWF, he was a little bit slimmer. He was still a big guy, but he was slimmer. He was older. But
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
young,
yeah. But
whew,
you don't. Yeah, you talking about young. You got to go back to Big Bubba Rogers, managed by
right?
Jim Cornette. Houston Wrestling, man. That's the real big boss man, Big Bubba Rogers, and he was even bigger back then and could still move just as quick. You know what I mean? So you got to do your research, bro, because he was definitely truly one of the best big men. But there again, Vader. Congratulations to Vader family for actually seeing him actually take his place inside the Hall of Fame, because there again, I think Vader is well deserving. His career, what he gave to the business, he's well deserving of being inside the Hall of Fame. So I'm just happy to see him get there.
It's always, bittersweet when the guy or girl goes in when they're no longer around. But if anything, what it does is it lets fans like us and people who knew them like you get to relive those great moments and remember the great matches of Vader's career, or Macho Man Randy Savage, or China when she went in a couple of years ago as a part of DX. You really are able to have a newfound appreciation for them. And I think that's the coolest thing of the Hall of Fame, because I remember in '04 when they kind of brought the Hall of Fame back and they were inducting guys like superstar Billy Graham and Jesse the Body Ventura. These were guys way before my time.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesse had stopped wrestling in the early '90s, right? So they were way before my time, but it lets people like me understand the impact that these guys had. When I saw Gorgeous George for the first time, I was like, oh, so many of those other wrestlers started to make sense to me. Ric Flair made a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
Superstar Billy Graham made a lot more sense to me after seeing Gorgeous George. So that's why I think one of the great things about the Hall of Fame is, and there are people out there who probably don't know who Vader is. We're young wrestling fans, and this is going to be the first time they see him. And then they're going to go over to Peacock. They're going to type in Vader. They're going to go to YouTube. They're going to type in Vader. And they're going to watch all these great moments and matches that he had. So Big Van Vader, again, just it's awesome. I'm really excited. I was excited when I saw that news.
Yeah, Vader, he passed away from heart complications, but I tell you, man, he fought to the end, bro. He actually said, man, I could beat this. He was working in matches all the way up to the end. I think he had an angle going on with somebody. I can't remember who.
Will Ospreay.
Will Ospreay, yeah. He had an angle going.
They worked an angle and a match.
Exactly, you know what I mean? So that's what wrestlers do, man. To the end, man. To the end, they push themselves. So definitely one of the all-time greats, Big Van Vader.
Yeah. So he'll be going in the Hall of Fame on that Friday. And you know what? It's just, it only makes sense for him to go in with another one of the great big men, The Undertaker. And I'm sure Taker's going to have words about Big Van Vader. I've heard you tell that story before about the Vader going in there and pointing out guys. And Vader's a part of a story that I always tell when people talk about, when people ask me about wrestling and, is it, do the guys really get hurt? Or, is there really? And I say, one time this guy Vader was wrestling and his eye popped out of his head and he just shoved it back in and finished the match. He's always a part of that. I always give that same speech. Now you tell me what you think of that.
Hey, bro, it doesn't get any realer than that. Okay, let's just say that it don't get no realer than that. It's like Mick Foley getting his ear torn off, and I'm sitting there watching it. Guy goes, "This is Mick Foley's ear." And Mick Foley go bang bang. I go, "What? Where's the freaking exit?" Okay, because I don't think I can take this. I'm serious.
It's crazy. And to me, like in any other sport or form of entertainment, if somebody's ear is chopped off or their eye comes out of the head, or they pull two quadricep muscles at the same time, it's over. It's a wrap.
Normally it's over. But again, if it was me, it would be over.
Well, but no football player, basketball player, baseball player, boxer, fighter, nobody would continue through that. Wrestlers are a different breed of people. They just are. And Roland Curtis.
Let me say that again. Most wrestlers, okay? Let's put that out there. Most wrestlers. Because
you are not most.
I'm tapping.
You're not most. Roland Curtis
super chat
with the $20 super chat. Appreciate it, Roland. Said Big Van Vader was the father of the huge school bully on Boy Meets World. Vader going in now is a nice touch because of that moment when he roughed up a foreign media guy to protect The Undertaker, the WWE title, and the business. I think I know this story, but I got to read about it. I remember something about they were overseas and he got in trouble.
Yeah. They was doing like a talk show, and Vader pretty much pulled the Dr. D. David Schultz.
Yeah.
And I think he almost got detained or something like that. From what my understanding is, Vince McMahon had to pull some strings to actually get him up out of there and whatnot. I can't remember what they were. I don't know. But I remember back in the 90s, right? Early
Yeah,
90s.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I think he may have been detained or something like that.
Was it Saudi Arabia?
I don't know. I'll look it up in the break and we'll find out. But shout out to Big Van Vader for protecting the business and making his rightful place into the Hall of Fame.
Glad it didn't kill his career like it did David Schultz, because David Schultz definitely represented for the boys, and I give him a whole lot of credit for stepping up. But we got to take a quick break, man. We got to take a quick break. Stick around, guys. You're in the Hall of Fame.
So this is Vader. Let me share my screen here. I did find Vader here.
Where's it at? What did it come from?
It's on YouTube. It looks like it's in some Middle Eastern country.
I
recognize the Arabic writing, and the host looks like he may be of Middle Eastern descent. But tell me if you can hear this.
Type of money we make.
I can hear it.
Enjoy the type of fame and lifestyle that we enjoy. So I find your remark and your question insulting.
It's not my question. It's somebody.
Does that fucking feel fake, huh? Does that feel fake?
Hey.
Does it?
Oh, no. Just.
Why don't you come down tonight, and before I kick his ass, I'll kick your ass.
Okay.
All right?
Just calm down.
Hey, we're not here to be insulted. I'm not here to be insulted.
Okay.
Oh, brother.
يا اما صجيه يا اما
Can you dig it, sucker?